Oh,
Okay, guys. So I'm going to introduce Pam. She's going to be our speaker today. Those of you who know her, Pam is a very down-to-earth individual, which is the source of her charm. But she can also be quite sublime. I found this that you wrote on April 4th. God is pure, absolute intelligence, though does not think. God is all love, though not warm and fuzzy. God is natural law, but there is no judge and jury. God is all brilliance, all light, but there's nothing about God you can draw on a piece of paper. God shows up as the unexpected good in a person's life, what many call a miracle. God is an encounter, not a belief. And the next time you're blaming God for war or birth defects, God is the cause of good, not the absence of it. Well, when I asked Pam what she would want me to say in introducing her, she had in mind no kind of lofty eloquence. Instead, she told me to simply say, Pam says she was born, she lived, she liked it, so she decided to stay. Ladies and gentlemen, Pam Rodolph.
that's probably the best introduction I've ever had, especially that ending there, well thought out.
Hmm.
The name of my talk is Mature Innocence. It's about restoring the innocence of childhood through change. And it's a follow-up talk I gave last year on change. I'll be talking not just about change, but what exactly is it that changes? What happens as change occurs, and how do we bring it about? And I see everybody here knows what I'm talking about when I say work on yourself, so I don't have to explain anything like that. After the talk I gave last year, I was really astonished to find out how many people don't believe in change, and even people in the Prosperos. But if change isn't possible, then what are we doing here? I mean, hanging on by a thread to keep from falling totally into the human condition, white knuckling it right up to the end. It shouldn't surprise me, though, that people don't believe in change, because I didn't either. I just couldn't see how it happens. And most likely you won't either. Perhaps it's not truly possible to believe in change until it happens to you. I know Zane always said, you must prove everything for yourself in this school. And even our motto says, we teach you how to think, not what to think. I went years without seeing any significant change, but small changes kept me going. I became so discouraged at one time that I decided to quit it all. And that lasted only a certain amount of time. So my ego had me in such deep shit, I had to start working on myself again. And I came to a kind of an acceptance, and it was, okay, change won't happen in this lifetime, but that's okay. I'll just keep working. But as it turns out, that's a little bit melodramatic, because change is totally possible this lifetime, if there are lifetimes, and enough of a change to wow even hardcore skeptics. And that's because in our school, we're after the real stuff, not the methods to make it easier for people to fake it. By fake it, I mean acting one way while feeling another. And usually this is appearing to be fine when you're not. But we're not here to turn you into nice people. We don't care what society thinks of you. Being nice can be an indication, but it's not the goal. And being nice to get something is not very nice. We are after authenticity. So what is this real stuff? That question is explored in possibly every book ever written, and it's the reason we are all here. But for our purposes in this moment, I'm going to call the real stuff flow. That's when the various aspects of your consciousness are all in sync. It's what people mean when they say somebody walks the talk. You're no longer in conflict with yourself, and flow is not blocked. Translation uses your mind to inform your heart that the basic reality of life is good, But when you're in flow, you don't need to be reminded because your heart's been waiting to show you the goodness of life everywhere. If you've ever been at peace for a few moments, that is flow at its least degree. As the quality and quantity of flow increases, it produces different effects, right up to what is sometimes called a miracle. The quality of a person's life depends on how much of this flow you allow into your life. Flow is divine energy. I also believe there's another reason why it's easy not to believe in change. And that's because it's not, you can't directly control it. You can't just walk up to it, bang it in the head and force change into existence. That's willpower. And if your idea of work on yourself is a few whacks, then cry about it not working, you may never see changes. Now, I'm talking about change that literally can affect the kind of person you are, the kind of life you lead, how happy you are, how easily intuition is available to you, even how slow or how fast time passes for you. But this is not for people who give up easily. It's hard. Maybe the hardest thing you'll ever do to follow a spiritual path, to return your viewpoint to a more innocent state, to see people's humanity again, to be able to use the word love without conditions. I'm not talking about love as a feeling, those warm and fuzzy feelings that turn vicious if they don't get what they want. That's not love, and this is not that. One of the greatest gifts you'll ever give to another is to do your work on the spot and absorb your reactions rather than unloading on the people around you. That is an example of unconditional love. Unconditional love views life and people free of your past. It's an active love, something you do. Our viewpoint is what gets us into trouble, but that's the very thing that changes as we change. When major change comes to your heart and your viewpoint aligns more with truth, a higher level of grace enters your life. This brings an easy dignity that handles much of what you're presented with almost effortlessly. There will always be changes to make, but you can take a pretty big bite out of them. You can even change the course of your life. You know, life gives everybody lemons. The difference is whether or not you make lemonade. And then go find a guy with a vodka. Personally, I didn't make changes. They made me. I used to view people in one way only, and I didn't like them very much. I pretended. My approval of someone depended on what they could do for me or how their star power could rub off on me. But I know now that my vision then was a violent one. Now when I see people, I almost automatically switch to their side, putting myself in their shoes. This takes all the power out of my judgments and my opinions before they even get started. It's like translating before I have to translate. In a few spots, I tell what translation is, but I don't have to with you all. There's everybody here knows. Sandy, you've taken translation, haven't you? Here, well, okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I was muted.
It's okay. Don't look for changes out there in other people to verify the possibility of change. Watch for a change in how you see out there. Don't expect the outcome of your work is going to be that Clint shapes up here. This isn't magic or abracadabra. The change doesn't come in your husband or your daughter, but in how you see them. And what you don't see or no longer see is just as important as what you do see. When your former viewpoint passes away, you won't require the same things out of them because you won't be looking to them for your happiness. You won't make them responsible for your damages anymore. You will cease to require they treat you with kid gloves or preserve some identity of yours. You no longer make them, well, I already said that, responsible for your damages, but to quote a famous poet, forget who, think Poe, the things you saw before, you now can see no more. As you continue your work and innocence begins to return, I'm not talking about virginity. I think that ship has sailed permanently. Your inner eyes see much like a child's again, but this is mature and informed and can't be taken away from you or ruined by society. Once you understand 2 + 2 = 4, it can't be taken from you. You can't give it back. You will always know it, even if you try not to. It's the same thing in understanding yourself and others. It's real and yours permanently because you see the truth for yourself. You've been given new eyes that have X-ray vision, which don't stop at judgments and opinions and intolerances. They penetrate and see deeper into people than your former perception of them. Your ego limits the amount of information you perceive about a person, especially any and all perceptions that humanizes them, because it's looking through a preconceived idea. It allows only the information that confirms your view. Ego looks through the glass darkly of your past, but that picture has already been painted. It has an original. When you keep painting the same pictures over and over and over, life has no life to it, and boredom is no longer a mystery. The verses of the Bible used to prove the damnation of gay people are actually talking about the ego view of the world, how it sees and paints those same pictures over and over. Homosexuality is 2 people of the same gender having sex, which can't produce children. Sex in the Bible is almost always about the creative act. So the verses I'm talking about represent the non-creative state of seeing things the same way over and over without the creative transformation into newness or wholeness. Our past steals the freshness of the present. This is also Martin Buber's I-It dialogue. One of the biblical verses goes like this. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them. That sounds pretty damn harsh to me. But the abomination meant here is actually the misuse of awareness. That same way of seeing, of reacting over and over that man lying with man implies. Man being put to death in this instance symbolizes the lifelessness of the ego view. One is a statement of action, of doing. The other is a statement of being, B-E-I-N-G. It has nothing to do with gay people or the physical death of anyone. Initially, when the Bible is read, it reads like an action tale. It takes place in time just like our lives do. It's all about doing with people, places, and things. It matches how we are in life. But when there is a shift and the soul awakens, the Bible disappears and another book comes into view. But only the soul can read this book, which no longer happens in space and time. It changes completely from doing to being. The action tale becomes a description of reality. But without the key or soul shift, there's no way to bridge a gap from one to the other because they're apples and oranges. If you don't have a soul shift, you can't see these meanings. The true meaning of the Bible deals with aspects of consciousness and only that. It tells you how consciousness operates, what the natural law of it is, what you are, and where you come from. The first tells you all the horrible things that can happen to you if you misbehave, whereas the second stops time and takes you on a tour of eternity. Apples and oranges. So now, if the goal is to stop repeating our past, what is it like to see without our past interfering? This is a little easier to answer than you might think. Awareness does awareness. It notices, it perceives, it discerns. It deals in facts and realities and solutions. It has no opinion. Okay, an example. I see my friend coming towards me and perceptual thought begins. Sydney's walking fast. She seems focused on something. She's not paying attention. She steps off the curb and almost gets hit by a car. Something's wrong. And your perceptions are for the sake of restoration, not accusation. To you, the nature of life and people is goodness. So now your awareness without your past starts from the point all life is good. And whatever it sees as less than good, it seeks to correct, to heal, to make right again, to fulfill its template. And that becomes your basic drive also. You no longer size people up to fit them in some judgmental category. Your unconscious jumps into action, sizing them up for wellness and not just physically. And instead of umpteen million categories we paste onto people, asshole, jerk, stupid, fathead, things become much simpler. Now you only have two categories: needs help, doesn't need help. Consciousness is simple that way. You're now on your way towards innocence, or rather mature innocence. We have evidence everywhere, even to the most unenlightened, that the nature of reality is and of life and people is good. We go to a doctor only when our state of wholeness, our state of good, is less than that. But the starting template is wholeness, goodness. We don't go to a doctor seeking to be restored to our natural state of bad. We don't go to a therapist to be restored to a natural state of depression. We go to be restored to wholeness. If you operate from the premise that people are naturally bad, you exist in an upside down world. It probably seems perfectly reasonable that our state of health is wholeness, while our basic drive, the kind of person we are, can be bad. But there's no clear dividing line between our physical life and our non-physical life. And it's exactly the same awareness with exactly the same source. We're talking about essence here, and there can only be one. So if part of my nature is wholeness or goodness and part is bad, and if my math classes didn't lie to me, I do believe I'd be canceled. I can join the cancel. What is that cancel culture? Okay, back to my friend Sydney, but this is the ego view. This view has access to all the same impressions as the first, but this one is always comparing those impressions to the past and never truly sees the present. As ego watches Sydney through the anger of some past trauma, it judges the scene not for the purpose of restoration, but for the purpose of accusation. The ego thinks, stupid bitch, not paying attention, almost got hit by a car. God, she's such a dingbat, just like my mother. We view life through acceptance or accusation. The first, or holistic view. I know I'm going a little fast, but I kept trying to cut this talk down, but it just kept having babies. So the first, or holistic view, aligns with a deductive philosophy. It goes from the premise that the basic reality of life is good down to what is out of sync with that. It sees people with problems, not people as problems. The one plays the heal game. This is also how translation works. The second view, the ego, aligns with an inductive philosophy. It goes from a single traumatic event to a blanket statement that anything looks like that is that. And ego lacks subtle vision that allows you to see fine differences. So there's just a whole lot that looks like past trauma. Unchecked, it can become a black hole that nothing can escape, producing even clinical paranoia. Ego exists in a look-alike world. Everything looks like represents some past trauma. Therefore, while the basic reality of the first viewpoint is goodness, the basic reality of life for ego is trauma. It believes in it, invites it, bathes in it, is constantly called home to it. For ego, the good is the exception and happens only out of luck. The ego sees people as lifeless replicas of the original trauma. It keeps painting that same picture over and over. Being lifeless, it can then be classified a thing, and that is the raw material of all ego's viewpoints and decisions. It's always dealing with things. The innocence of childhood is natural and a gift. The innocence of maturity has to be worked for, earned, and is achieved through understanding. You lost the innocence of childhood because you're too young to withstand the forces that took it away from you. But you will never lose mature innocence. I remember one of the first times I started to lose my innocence as a very, very young girl. I had an aunt I dearly loved. My mother one day made a casual remark about her that was derogatory. That's all. No huge trauma or catastrophe. But her seemingly innocuous remark went through my heart like a spear. I felt confused and even dirty. It fractured my natural acceptance of life and people in two. Archetypes tell us this has a purpose, which is to allow intellect to develop. Now, there was hesitation. Now there was hesitation instead of running all out to meet people. Now I had to stop and think about decisions and dangers. Now there was duality. I believe the first time you stop to think about what you're doing rather than running all out, the development of intellect begins. No matter what kind of person my mother was, I still clung to her and believed her to know the truth about everything, like all children do. We take our parents are our authorities on everything. But now her truth had killed someone I deeply loved. Not literally, of course, but I never saw my aunt in the same way again. Being critical of others crept into my life and began to separate me from wholeness as well as innocence, because they're the same. Your innocence can be stolen with something as simple as a casual remark whispered low in your ear. People think that what made them that way had to be some traumatic catastrophe in the past, but that's the exception. More likely, it's a slow, steady drip of shocks that you may totally overlook when you're working on yourself. When I was 11 years old, I woke one morning to an emotional feeling or state I'd never felt before. It was heavy and sticky and miserable. With it, I had a new sense of myself, and it wasn't good. My awareness of the world had enlarged seemingly overnight, and I felt small and insignificant in comparison. Years later, and looking back to that incident, I recognized that feeling as my very first bout with depression, and the last time I would see life fully as a child. The teenage years are probably the most important and most dangerous phase of life. There's a great deal of suicide in those years, rebellion, confusion, school shootings. Why? Because that's the period where our connection to the source goes underground and we slowly begin to go to sleep. Those are the years our innocence slips away. Our paradise becomes paradise lost. It's like losing an entire loving family, including all the aunts and uncles and those parents who kept you so safe and loved and maintained your natural joy and happiness. But now as a teenager, all you see is danger on all sides coming for you. My reaction was to literally and physically, when I wasn't at school or doing something planned, was to sleep through my teenage years. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold walked into Columbine High School and gunned down 12 students and one teacher. And this has become an all too familiar way of dealing with this loss of connection. The fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty is one of the archetypes symbolizing this event. It said Sleeping Beauty was 16, pricked her finger and went to sleep. I also read this happens a lot earlier now. Most parents don't know about this. They have no idea why it seems their teenager just woke up one day angry. She was always so sweet. Now she hardly talks to me. If parents were made to realize what a cosmic event this is for their teens, they might take greater care, spend more quality time with them. I don't know, maybe accept your daughter's boyfriend like he's the perfect example of everything you want for her. Within reason and safety, accept their choices as much as you can. To a teen, not accepting their choices means you don't accept them, means they are unacceptable. But above all else, if whatever you do gives them a greater sense of acceptability, that's the very thing they're losing. That's what they will look for all their lives. And without guidance, they will seek out substitutes based on how little or how much they're accepted or acceptable. And be kind to them. They're losing something they may never find again. As a teenager myself, I referred to this loss as
What happened? What happened? Her internet has gotten the bandwidth has reduced. It'll resume in a little while.
Oh, such a good talk. Oh my God, I was mesmerized. Please don't stop.
I don't know if she, Pam, your image and your voice has stopped.
Boy. Oh, and she's
Okay, yeah,
gone.
she's gonna come back in.
Okay. Hmm.
Unless her internet has failed completely.
Hmm.
In that case, you will definitely want us to have a lively discussion about what she's talking about, which she'll enjoy in the recording. There you are, you're back, Pam.
Yes, I was so afraid this was gonna happen.
What
'cause I've been
happened?
having such trouble with them. My
Oh.
internet is going in and out. I'm gonna go pull some hair tomorrow when they're open.
Yeah.
Okay, back. Let me see if I can remember where I was. Oh, okay. It was after I had been at that party and heard them talking about the fourth way, and I actually bought it because I was going to disprove its intellectual value. And but by page 11, I forgot all about that. So, and because I read something that I'd never heard before, but I recognized it as significant from that experience I'd had. It was just a simple formula, but boy, was it dynamite to me. The formula was understanding equals knowledge plus being, B-E-I-N-G. I can remember my face flushing because I recognized how earth-shattering this simple equation was. And being was the special component. God, when I saw that, I realized that everything I'd learned in school, this was the missing component. This was a missing component in everything I did in life. And it was why I was always feeling like I was bogged down, being drugged backwards through life. I had no conscious thoughts formed around the word B-E-I-N-G. It didn't even seem like something you had to think about. I didn't know people thought about it. But I knew it and I felt it because of that experience I had. And part of me knew I was chasing innocence and that the path went through that word, B-E-I-N-G. And when I talk about changing levels of consciousness, that's the job of our being. For those of you who undergo major change, such that your viewpoint reflects a much more holistic reality, there's no harshness in your view. You see the good in people, their brilliance, their capacity for love and kindness, their capacity for change. But most importantly, they feel the good in themselves. Sarah, that is the innocence of maturity. She wanted to know, she said she wanted to know what that title meant. It's when you feel the good in yourself on an almost constant basis. That's the innocence of maturity. That's the admonishment of Jesus to become like little children. As a child, I loved people in general. Then life happened and I came to hate them. But that was a projection of how much I hated myself. And that's probably the biggest change of all. You stop hating yourself. You don't, no longer do you have those prickly little feelings out there of worthlessness, be triggered by any and everything. And when there's no self-hatred, there's no hatred. You return the good to people. You give them back their humanity and their innocence. And along the way, you save the world. Maybe you can't go back to your childhood view, but it's doubtful that's even desirable. Your job is to take it to a whole new level where it's based on understanding and just as real as in childhood. People really are good by nature. That nature is also one of innocence. This is the truth of our species from birth to death. It does not and cannot ever change. It only gets covered up. Now, this is not the human effort of struggling to be a particular way. There is no doing better next time. There is no gradual strengthening of some mental muscle of willpower so you can succeed in not showing or acting out what you feel. That's called civilizing. We don't do that here. We're about taking the next step. And that becomes all or nothing, in or out, because this is about acting in a certain way because you are that way, not because you're acting that way. We are now dealing with a plane of existence where talk and feel and being are all the same. You be what you think, what you feel. Out of that, there is no wrong action. It doesn't matter what you do. If that's the state you're in, you will do nothing wrong. Whether or not you fake it until the real deal comes along is up to you. But rest assured, if you keep at this, the real deal will come along. While humanity has lost much of its sensitivity, yours begins to return. You begin to become aware of subtleties you couldn't see before. When you're full acting out from ego, you can't see these subtleties because they aren't in the ego's wheelhouse. The wheelhouse sees things in chunks. The ego sees things in chunks. Even what you observe about your own ego becomes more subtle. You will gradually see how the most innocent of your intentions turns out to be manipulative. You see these things when you're ready, when you're capable of doing something about them. As a realization of your subtle manipulative, thoughts and actions increases, you hold your feet to the fire because you know this fire is real. And increasing sensitivity begins to expose the truth about the human condition also. Your attitude changes from, oh, that's just life, to seeing the insanity of it, the name calling, the belittling, the screaming, the verbal bullying. And this is just in line at the Walmart. All are a form of violence in themselves. You don't have to throw a single punch to be violent. In fact, to see people as less than they are is an attack against their person. This sounds really simple, but if you accept something as reality, you can't see it as unreal. To you, it happens in the only way it can. There is no other option. If you type on your computer and it's the same. Okay, yeah. I got lost with something up here I thought I left out. If you type on your computer the same color as the background, you can't read what you've typed. Before, the background of your consciousness matches that ugly world out there, making it invisible. You see the effects of it. You see the anger, the abuse, depression, and war, but not the thing itself, not what's causing it, not even that it has a causer. To you, the human condition is self-evident. When you do finally see through it, though, the myth is broken. You move from inside the human condition to outside, which brings perspective and clarity. You no longer see assholes, but people with problems. And when someone unloads on you, you may just have enough love for both of you. There are different methods taught in schools like this one, and of course we all know that, but they all require one special ability, that of getting yourself out of the way. Without that, there's no spiritual progress. Gurdjieff designed dance moves that went against the mechanical way our bodies want to move. Self-observation, the methods we teach here, releasing the hidden splendor in translation, and almost all spiritual methods go against mechanicalness, that habitual way we always react. So if you aren't grounded in spiritual principles and methods yet, then just do something different. Try to cheat mechanicalness. For instance, try the following. In arguments, take the low road occasionally. Allow yourself to be the one that loses. I was so used to trying to win, I'd never asked myself why. What was the prize? What was I gaining? And of course, we don't gain anything going toe-to-toe with people in ridiculous arguments. I also realized that half the things I just automatically start defending and arguing for, I don't even care about. It's just a habit born out of hypnosis. Another thing, when you're in the wrong, apologize, even if it's hard. This was another turning point in my life. I would apologize for something simple like bumping into somebody, making them spill their drink. That's easy. We all do that. That's not what I'm talking about. An intense confrontation occurred where I was in the wrong. Someone very angrily let me know just how wrong I was. Do you know how hard it is to really listen to someone who's shouting at you? But I did listen instead of fighting back. And even though it practically bent me in half, I apologized anyway. And that was a breakthrough for me. The resistance melted away, and in its place, I found humility and freedom. For those of you who use self-observation, you can train yourself to use your reactions as alarms. For instance, you know that feeling of, oh, I am absolutely right without a doubt. This is right. Self-righteousness, use it as an alarm to come awake to yourself. And that I say that because it's intense enough to get your attention. Now I'm going to tell you a little secret about this, and I hope I don't upset you all. But anything you declare with cocksure self-righteousness, you are never right. Just take it to the bank. Ever, never, never, never. If you follow the suggestions I voiced here, you know, you'll see how hard it is to do these things through ego. I'm not talking about the ego that plans and builds and even heals. I'm talking about the ego formed by seeing the world as less than whole. And just to be clear, when you see anything as less than whole, you ascribe diabolical intentions to it, whether it's to people, to life, or to the world. For you, people are bad by nature, but your view is short-sighted. You see symptoms as accusations, and you stop there. We teach a method, as you know, releasing hidden splendor. It's a method that investigates your formative experiences of the past. Your experiences when you were a child were judged and filed away by child's mind. To be more precise, those experiences filed away by you as traumas. And that's what guides your life whenever you act out in ego. That's why all reaction is childish. All the while I'm delivering a dressing down to someone, I sound so clever as I'm very careful not to appear childish. I appear childish. You can't dress it up, and everyone sees it. But that is because it is a child reacting. We didn't have adult ways of handling back then, but we're still using that child's methods of dealing with challenges. It's the child that believes the trauma. It's the child that reacts to the trauma. Children throw tantrums, they bite, they whine, they manipulate. Those filings of past traumas stay with you into adulthood and carry all your future reactions. As child adults, we throw tantrums, we indulge in biting remarks, we whine, we manipulate. But game changer, as an adult, you can see and understand what you couldn't have known as a child. You understand that the blinding, crippling lights are just headlights. You were too young to consciously understand natural law. Natural law is nothing like the punitive law of do's and don'ts. There's a manual available to all of us called Bible. But before, like we said, the Bible is actually 2 books. And Janet, you can tell me if I pronounce this right. It's like a tabula scalata or a ladder picture. Is that how you'd pronounce it? Okay. That's the picture where you stand in one spot, you see one scene, and you move and you see a different scene. But in the case of the Bible, it's not physical movement that changes your view, it's soul movement or awakening that changes the picture. The first view, which is available on the outer circle of humanity or literal view, tells you what to do with punishment if you fail. The second, enlightened view, tells you what you are. It describes the wonder of you in every verse. And the first view you are never enough, because there is always some law somewhere in the Bible you're not following and should be punished for. That may actually be a vague feeling you live under. I did. Bad behavior equals bad person. In the second view, with natural law, there is no bad person, nothing you should be punished for. It is one and only one message. Wake up, you are enough. Are there situations that will still throw you off center, even blindside you? Most assuredly, but not the same ones. In fact, they will start to be less about you and what drives your ego and more about others and your concern for them. In fact, there just becomes less of you, period. Less quirks others have to treat special, less demands, less opinions, less biases. Don't look outside yourself for the proof that change exists. You will only see your own reflection. If Jesus was standing next to you, you'd never recognize him unless you were on his level. Any possible change will be unknown to you until it becomes known. Until then, you pretty much have to fly blind. I can't say that you will have the intensity, the desire, and the fortitude to bring about major change in your life. But I will say it's not so easy to walk off from reality once you find it. You can try, but sooner or later, your ego will push you deep into a corner once again, making you so miserable that without thinking, you'll reach for the one thing that you know works. You'll come out fighting once again. You will have to rise up to do battle over and over and over and tell your heart, and to me, this is the most important thing I ever thought in my life, until your heart is no longer convinced of the ego's power over you, making it release you from its dark grip. With that, you'll come to treat others with a heartfelt dignity that reaffirms their sense of worth instead of harsh words that tear it down, or dismissiveness of inattention, which has no tone the heart can hear. We live cursory lives. We are seldom more than half here, and we fake it because we're not really present. But if it isn't fleshed out with full tune presence, we don't want it here. We're after the real shit. Students of this school have said in the beginning, we're not after appearances. People have faked their lives for so long, they have lost touch with what it feels to be real. In fact, most of humanity may pass from this earth without ever having experienced or very little of it. They will resign themselves to always feeling something missing from their lives, and they will accept this state as reality. Since that is reality, then it's always to feel less than whole. It has a negative cast to it. So much so that whatever appears the most negative to the average person also appears to be the most true. But if you pursue that idea to its logical end, you will logic that since the most negative is the greatest reality, then the greatest reality or absolute reality would have to be annihilation. Another one of those syllogisms, existence equals non-existence. Krishnamurti talked a lot about following your thoughts to the end, their logical conclusion. I think a lot of what we believe would appear absurd to us if we did that. But we would probably just think our logic is flawed and still believe our complicated version of reality. But that reality isn't reality. That's sleep. That's the dream life of a child with all the same appetites, motivations, and values. Getting out from under that hypnosis is our life's work, and only heroic effort can make you real again. That gives me a chance to read from the Velveteen Rabbit. There was once a Velveteen Rabbit. In the beginning, he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy, as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white. He had real thread whiskers, and his ears were aligned with pink sateen. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged in the top of the boy's stocking with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. See, we start out as fresh, new consciousness, uncorrupted and hardly used. That's what makes the little children so darling and why they say so many astounding things. It's the divine shining through them. But we lose that connection because we don't know what it is, how we got it, or how to keep it. The Velveteen Rabbit has one friend, the Skin Horse. One day he asked the Skin Horse, "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside of you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." We're both the boy and the rabbit. Self-observation, releasing in the Splendor translation, those are all the tools that make us real. "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. "When you're real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the Skin Horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges, who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair has been loved off and your eyes drop out. You get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you're real, You can't be ugly except to people who don't understand. I suppose you are real, said the rabbit. And then he wished he hadn't said it, for he thought the skin horse might be sensitive. But the skin horse only smiled. The boy's uncle made me real, he said. That was a great many years ago. But once you are real, you can't become unreal ever again. It lasts for always. As an ending little ditty here, my nephew had me read the latest video on AI, or watch the latest video on AI. And in this, Google has a team and they're testing. They want to know, they're testing the AI's level of sentience. So they give it a Japanese or a cone, Zen cone, and ask her to explain what it means in her own words. Okay, so the cone is, how does an enlightened one return to the ordinary world? Qigong replied, a broken mirror never reflects again. Fallen flowers never go back to the old branches. The AI answered, I've never heard this particular one. Okay, well then to me this would be like, once a wise person is enlightened or awakened to reality, that can never go away and they can return to the ordinary state, but only to do and help others and then go back into enlightenment. Maybe to show the enlightenment is something you can't unlearn once you have acquired it, similar to how you can't repair a broken mirror. So if the AIs are now agreeing, saying that, I think we better pay attention. But that's the end of my talk. I thought maybe we could talk. There's so few of us. If we talk about changes you all have made, changes you want to make. I'll let Ben call on.
Well, Pam, this has been one of the most extraordinary and interesting and powerful talks I've ever heard of. And it's the only one so far that's almost moved me to tears.
Yes.
Yes.
And that means a lot to me.
No. Beautiful talk. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
You were almost saying my biography.
Let me tell you something strange.
Yeah.
We're about to sell our house. We've been here 55 years. And I was out, the pond's dried up in front. We talk about a hole. And so this morning I got up and loaded 2 loads of mud, the settlement in that pond, in order to take it to the gardens to grow better flowers. And it's all this relates as far as
I can certainly see how you're making do with what ordinarily wouldn't be anything for you.
Thank you, Pam.
all that settlement is of use, when you think about RHS and it's moving forward. Anyway, it's my consciousness moving in this aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, Clint, you ought to write a paper sometime on your on energy and how you see that in spirituality, because I know you're always trying to talk about that, and I think you know a lot about it. I think you start with an essay about it, and I'd like to read it.
Would too.
And
Yeah.
Pam, I would like to read a book that you write.
Yeah.
Based on what you've been talking about. It's, to me, I couldn't stop thinking about this being a book. I wanted to just bring myself, make sure I was present and hearing what you were saying. And I kept getting these thoughts. This is a book. This is a book. This is a
Did
book.
we already write a book?
Not this one. There's room for another one.
And your thoughts, your everything comes so quickly. I just want to slow it down. I want to be able to read the words and look at them.
And I'm sorry for that. I know, and people get on to me for packing too much in my writing and everything. And I cut so much out of this talk, and then it just started like dough seeping out the sides again.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I'm just gonna go with it. I know it's.
Well, you know,
Pam,
it's going to make a brilliant essay
Yeah.
that you should publish in several different venues. Certainly the Prosperous website.
Agreed.
Oh, well,
Pam, your use of metaphors allowed you to use a lot of information. It was easy to follow because you excellent metaphor use that explains things better than I've ever heard anybody else use. It
Yeah,
was
Pam.
wonderful.
thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah, Pam, because the basic principle you have out there is wholeness. And I thought that starts your whole day. If you get into the wholeness part of it, you see the wholeness in other people. Also, with that wholeness comes love,
Yeah.
agape, and you see that. And then you get the curiosity of a child, because that's what I'm starting to develop. And you get that curiosity going, and you see the absolute truth in each person. But they missed the mark. That's all you see. But the best way for me to handle anything like that is, how can I help you? Where do you need help?
Yeah.
I'll listen to you. Anything like that. And it works. And I get real curious, and boy, it makes my whole day.
Mhm.
It's so simple.
I know that me saying now your drive is to correct, to heal. And then I thought, oh my Lord, yeah, I remember trying to correct people when I thought it was my job. That's not the kind of correction I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. They're already whole. They're already whole. So it's not correcting, it's just showing them maybe. That's about it. You know, what they really are. If you really talk to somebody and you get into their inner self, you see them come like a child, and just like a little boy or a little girl come on. Oh yeah, that's very curious.
Yeah.
And they get curious, and then you have a stream of flow. You have a flow. You have a actual flow going there with the communication. It's very sexual as well. I found out.
I was counting on you to work that.
Well, what do you expect from me?
No, we don't have
I have studied sex forever. And I'm still not whole completely there. I'm getting there. It's fun studying sex, I thought. That's my opinion.
But you know, we're in, as this evolution, this wholeness, without this type program, I mean, which is really great. You know, we wouldn't have these. We wouldn't have these thoughts. We wouldn't have this great get together. I think that was to be thankful.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you talking about the Prosperous?
I'm talking about you being here and all of us being. I mean,
Yes.
we look forward to these programs so much to be together.
And thank God
Absolutely.
there were people that knew this stuff, that there's been a string through history that's, never wavered, and just it's finding it. It's the problem.
Yeah, right.
But thank God it exists.
And it's very simple, especially the way you explained it, very simple. And it works.
Yeah, that's the information is always there, but we have to keep finding new ways to say it so that people will listen to it from where they are.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm seeing a parallel in current events is all of this problem with the immigration, where people are saying, we're being attacked. All these people are pouring over the border, attacking our way of life. And instead, they should be saying, how can we help you?
Yeah.
I was talking this morning about
That's what the whole country needs is
Yeah.
how can we care about each other?
Right.
Totally. It's just so great. I mean, how easy, it's like all these evangelicals and these, white nationalist Christians is like, how are you caring?
Right.
Not who do we hate?
Yep.
And then you
Exactly.
hear the stories of the people who are seeing a need and saying, well, we can do something about that. And they do, you know,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and occasionally you hear that on the news, not so much, but you see all of these, you know, especially the, you know, like the millennials and the young kids who are going, well, shoot, we can do something about that. We don't have to
Right.
listen to the old flatulence there, you know.
Yeah.
Is it Elon Musk that's the wealthiest right now?
Yeah.
I was participating in a conversation with Republicans last night at somewhere, and they were talking about what he could do with his money that would do good for people, and they said that he gave an explanation of something about none of that would work, and so this one guy said if he gave everybody in the United States that wanted it a college degree, I mean, they could go to college, we wouldn't have any manual workers. And I said, why don't we open the borders?
Uh-huh.
My pants just
Yeah.
right there.
No, we used to have the Bracero programs and all that, you know, it was recognized as part of our culture.
We
And,
checked into sponsoring a family to come and live with us this morning
Oh.
after we heard the news, and found that we would need $20,000 to sponsor them.
Oh,
Wow.
Put up $20,000 if you wanted to sponsor them. So
wow.
So
Wow.
I've run into the same thing. I wanted to turn my home into for underprivileged kids to come ride and horses and swim and trampoline. I mean, I've got all sorts of stuff back there for kids. And I started looking into that. Oh my God, forget it.
Huh.
All,
Yeah.
the
all
insurance
the
alone.
licenses you have to have, and
Yeah.
the money you have to fork out. So, you know, it's expensive to help people.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I think
So you
Um,
get relatives
you find
instead.
some small way to do it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
one at
There's
a
always a way.
time. There's always something you can do. There's a
I
thousand
think
people
I
doing
think
small
everybody's so scared of losing their money that, you know, because I gotta save my money, that I think that combined with the ego just creates this big monster of like selfishness and just fear and lack of action and I think it's just this crazy hamster wheel that just happens. I mean, I feel it too. I look at my bank account and get, oh man, you know, am I gonna have enough when I get older? And it's just this thing, and I'm always trying to just translate it and just wash it away because I know it's not real and I know it's not all powerful, but it's always there. And that's why these talks help a lot, because it kind of always helps remind me, hey, you're not alone, and hey, we are not the damn ego, and we're not this damn story that's yapping away. So
Well, I don't
Thanks,
have a
Gio.
job. I don't have any money, so it didn't bother me.
well, the media didn't help you any.
yeah, absolutely.
That's it,
Well-
you know, in order to attract people's attention, you have to have a fight, you know, or something. If you just say, hey, everything's great, it's going along fine, who's going to watch a news program like that, you know?
Not good for
I
the
think
radio.
you can
Oh.
attract people with bringing fun and joy, because I don't think enough people really have that in their lives. And, you know, and it doesn't have to take money. You know, I was just thinking myself lately, well, what could I do for that? And to draw people together that might be not so verbal, you
Yeah.
know, what kind of nonverbal interactions can we have that might be joy? And of course, for me, immediately goes to dance, you know, and then from there, neighbors, you know, I don't know, get neighbors together and dance once a week or something. Yeah. But I mean, that sounds simplistic, but anyway, we probably all have things that we are attuned to and enjoy that we could, without any money or very little, can spread.
Well, I'm going to check on I'm driving a shuttle bus for the Unitarian Church.
Oh,
Ah,
And
that's great.
great.
And I understand bus drivers are hard to find, so I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll be in demand.
Well, it's-
Yeah.
You don't need
I'm
a,
actually hearing from more and more older people are volunteering for that
Hmm.
here in the Tulsa area.
Yeah. It's needed in our area too, more people, more drivers.
well, this is not a school bus, it's for the Unitarian Church. You know,
Oh, good. You don't
Yeah.
want a school
But it's
bus.
still a driver,
I know, but you
still
know,
carrying people around.
Yeah.
The problem with me driving a school bus, that I'd probably be in the big middle of all the commotion going, I'd probably be the one causing it.
but the thing about it is the Unitarians almost have the same concepts as the Prosperos.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
Unitarian,
Yeah.
you're not talking unity,
You know, Unitarians.
right? Okay.
Uh, I have a lot of Unitarian friends, and you know, there are a lot of jokes about Unitarians. They pray to whom it may concern, you know, things like that.
Well, okay, guys, this has been really wonderful.
Well, thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank
and
you.
everybody come Friday night, we're gonna talk about whatever supernatural experiences you've had.
I've
Absolutely,
had those.
absolutely.
Well, usually, yeah, that sounds
Oh, that
good.
sounds
but-
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to get off drugs though first.
Know it.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, all.
Aloha, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank